That is one of the most unique daytime running lights that I've probably ever seen, and very distinctive. What's going on, everyone? Today we have another night review, and it is the 2022 Hyundai Tucson, redesigned and new for this year. We're gonna take a look at all these exterior lights and go for a test drive so you can see just how well everything does. Let's jump into it. If this is your first time tuning in for a night review, be sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss another one. And I have a full review of this Tucson coming out shortly after this, so stay on the lookout for that. But right up front, look at these really unique daytime running lights. They almost look like wings, if you ask me. So these LED daytime running lights come on the limited trim, which we have here, and they're optional on the SEL. Every single model is going to give you LED daytime running lights regardless, but just these specific ones on those trims. And then you can see we even get an LED turn signal here, so you got full LED here on this limited trim. And then down below, those are the actual headlights. So right up there, that's the daytime running light. Down here, those are projector LED headlights. So projectors are only on the limited trim. So the lower trims are going to give you reflector LEDs. So we'll have to see how those do maybe later on. Now on the side body, first of all, this is the Calypso red paint. It looks really nice on this Tucson. This Tucson has a lot of different styling going on in angles, but you can see we've got a nice marker light on the side. You've got turn signals in the mirror on every trim except the base model as well. And in the back, you're gonna get even more polarizing, unique design. So first of all, we have LED taillights on every trim except the base model. And look at this LED light bar. That is really distinctive. We've been seeing more LED light bars like this in other vehicles, and I'd love to know what you guys think. You have the exact same, almost wing-like diamond type shape design like you do with those lights up front. And then disappointingly, you've got an incandescent turn signal even on this top trim. And then you can see the brake and reverse lights. These license plate lights look like LEDs. And we have a hands-free activated liftgate, but I'm gonna pop the button there. Yeah, those are definitely LED lights there. You can even see the little illuminated light to lower the liftgate, the power liftgate. And back here, there's one little light. It's pretty darn dark. It does help a little bit, and I'm using a different lens than I normally do, so it's a little darker than usual. But that light gives you enough to kind of see what you're doing, but otherwise it's pretty dark. Here's a closer look at this Calypso red paint. It's really vibrant, really bright. It's not metallic-y or anything like that, but I think it looks nice on here. And in the second row, first of all, you can see you've got illuminated controls on the door. One of those is a heated seat control. And then you've got some pretty bright lights. We've got LED lighting in here on both sides because we have a big panoramic roof. And this is actually a really spacious back seat and pretty well lit. And you'll also see down there you've got two illuminated USB charging ports as well. And there's no fancy approach lighting, but as you get close to the vehicle, you'll notice the door handle illuminates. It's just on the front doors, not the back door, but it's still a nice touch. And as we take a look inside, we'll look at the ambient lights in here, all the controls and the screens, and check everything out. But we've got heated and ventilated leather seats here. More details in the full review, but let's go ahead and hop in. Now that we're inside, push button start. Then you've got a couple of big screens that will immediately stand out to you. So first of all, the lighting on the steering wheel is nice. It's just a soft, gentle, light blue back glow. But look at this digital display right here. This is on this top limited trim. Otherwise you get a smaller display. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but there's a bunch of information that you can see on here. You can toggle through quite a bit, including trip computer stuff, your speedometer, but it looks nice, and you can even change the way that these look. Over here on the door, you'll see that your window controls all have illuminated buttons and your locks, but there's mirror controls that don't. Very minor, but just keep that in mind. And then over here, this is nice. This is your illumination control. So if I start to turn this or push this down, it will dim this display and the main screen. So I love having a button that can control that very quickly and easily, and then these two are illuminated as well. Right up on the door, your memory settings even have some illumination to them. And then down in the door pocket, you'll see that nice gentle glow of ambient lighting down there. And here, look at this big display. This is a 10.25 inch screen, standard on the limited trim. Otherwise, it's optional on the SEL. And I'm just gonna kind of show you what you get with a couple of just, light settings. So let's go to vehicle, go to lights, and then this is where you can turn your automatic high beams off or on right there. and your ambient lighting, and we'll go through the ambient lights in just a sec. But also, one other thing, go to display, and then a blue light filter. So this is really cool. If you look at your phone, you'll probably have a similar setting to adjust the blue light at night. This really helps to give you better sleep and not interfere with your melatonin or strain your eyes. And that can automatically kick on, or you can just have it on all the time, or even turn it off if you don't want it. But back to the ambient light. So in this top limited trim, we actually get 64 different colors, because you have all of these available, but then you can go to a custom color and literally just move this wherever you want. So we'll go to like a purpley color. Let me back out. And it's showing up blue on the camera, but no joke, it is definitely purple. I mean, you can get whatever color you want. There's more of a reddish pink. We'll go up to like a yellowy orange, but it's pretty cool. This is 64 colors on this limited model. Otherwise, the SEL will give you 10 different colors, which is definitely enough. The one difference though is that the limited is gonna give you lower center console ambient lighting, whereas the SEL is just gonna be their upper console and the door pockets. But this one gives you a little bit more on each side. So be sure to let me know down below what color you would be going with. I like a purple or like a sea green-ish color. So let me know what you guys think. And then all your climate controls have buttons. This is entirely touchscreen, and I talk more about that in the full review. And then you've got a lot of ambient lighting down here, backlit USB ports as well, and a 12-volt power outlet. Now, one more thing about the ambient lighting that some of you will actually like. So first of all, you can link it to your drive mode to be like red in sport mode, etc. Or you can have it automatically dim when you're driving. And you can turn it completely off. You can change the brightness up here. I have it on the brightest level, but you can turn it all the way down to turn it off. But when you have it dimmed while driving, watch this. So you can see how bright that is right there. I'm gonna shift into drive, and then it starts to dim. So it can be a little less distracting if you want it to be like that. So it's up to you. But then there are controls galore down here, like heated seats, heated steering wheel, ventilated seats, even your camera, which does work pretty well in dark conditions. It just gets kind of grainy, but it still looks good. And then your drive mode button, your shifter, it's a push button shifter, all of that. There's no gentle glow ambient lighting on the center console, but everything's kind of bright enough to where it doesn't really need it. The one area that could use it though is the center console right here. There's literally nothing in there. If I turn that on, you get a little bit of light, but there's nothing inside of there. The glove box does have lighting though, so that's good. And that's an automatic dimming rearview mirror standard on the Limited, and you can get that on the SEL. And then right overhead, the actual lights, or the buttons up here, none of them have lighting except the Blue Link and the SOS, but this turns on all of the lights. And then this one over here, turn it on, is to whether or not the lights turn on when your door opens. And then the moonroof or the panoramic sunroof doesn't have any lights. So I'd like if those had lights. Otherwise you just press on the actual light to turn it on. And then you have a manual flipping vanity light up above. Now looking at the headlights right out in front of us, so these are the low beams. Pretty good beam pattern going across, dips off a little bit on each side. And then brights, the high beams, those are nice and bright right in the middle. Now, the peripherals are not that good, and we don't have the option of fog lights here because the headlights are already actually pretty low. There's really not a lot of room for fog lights, but kind of bummed by that. And initially recording this video, the IIHS headlight ratings were not out, but they are now. And as you can see, the top limited trim gets a good rating, the rest get a lower acceptable rating. And the limited trim gives you the best distance, as you can see on the graph, and the lower trims give you less distance. And now as we look at the lights in the distance, so this is the same spot I usually line up. I'm sorry I can't zoom in quite as far today, but those red poles and the fire hydrant are illuminated. There's obviously a dip there for oncoming traffic, and probably the normal amount of light that we see on the driver's side. But let's go ahead and get these out on the road. Well, high beams, that looks good. Definitely lights up that hill. Pretty good beam pattern. Let's go ahead and check them out. All right, let's get going in this test drive on this all new, well, not all new, but redesigned 2022 Hyundai Tucson. So the whole point of this test drive in this video is so you know what it's like to live with this, drive with this at night, and feel comfortable or not feel comfortable knowing what it has to offer. So I like the ambient lighting. It's nothing amazing, it's not a wow factor, but there's a lot of colors. All the buttons have good backlighting. But in this test drive, we're gonna look at how well the automatic high beams do, how good the low beams are, the high beams on dark surfaces, around corners, things like that. Now, there are no fog lights, there are no adaptive lights, it's just straight on LED high and low beams. So we'll see how well they do. When we get on a dark road, we'll switch cameras and get a closer look at them. But if you want to know more about driving impressions and how it actually drives, be sure to check out my full review in the daytime following this. But just one quick snippet: acceleration with base 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, boom. It makes some noise, but that's about it. It's adequate, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, just the low beams are on. We've obviously got some street lights here. I'm gonna flick the high beams on. Whoops. Now I just flicked the high beams on. I want to see if they will still turn on even though we have some street lights up overhead once that car goes by. So far it's still just the low beams. So the threshold of when they turn on must be fairly dark. Some vehicles turn their high beams on right here, no problem, even though there's some street lights. So you probably won't inadvertently blind people in the city if there's enough street lights, which is good. And I can even see a little bit off kind of into the side of the road, just a little bit with these low beams on. But let's go ahead and get on a dark road in just a sec. Quick note, the rearview mirror is automatic dimming on our trim. I think it's available on the SEL, but the side mirror does not dim on any trim on this Tucson. All right, now we're just turning onto the dark road to get a real good look at these headlights, and let's switch cameras right now. So the high beams automatically turned on. There's a truck in front of us, and thankfully the high beams turned off automatically. So it's just the low beams right now. We'll see how they look when we flatten out, and hopefully we don't blind anybody. Once this car goes by, we'll be able to see better. All right, I can see that corner fairly well. Obviously we're fairly close now, but high beams just turned back on. There's a car coming around the corner, and the high beams just turned off. So they were too close for my comfort to blinding that person. Low beams are on, and the high beams just kicked back on. There's a truck in front of us, and then they kick back off. So we'll see how the low beams do with distance here. I can see the reflection off that truck, and now the low beam pattern comes down. The beams do have pretty good distance out there. I've got to say there's a significant dip on the oncoming traffic side, which is normal, but now we flatten out and I can see straight ahead pretty good. I wish they were maybe just a tiny bit further or higher up the road, but overall they're doing pretty good. Now I'm going to give this truck some distance so that we can actually turn the high beams off and on and work with that a little bit more. So to turn the high beams back off, or the automatic beams, you just flick it forward again and then flick it back into low beams. Otherwise you can do it on the screen, or just turn the headlight dial off of auto to just the lights. But let's see how we do going around here. And those low beams are reaching out fairly far enough. There's actually more traffic out here than I've had in like any video. Usually it's pitch black out here, but after we get by here, just the low beams. Distance is good. I won't say it's necessarily great, but I think it's good, especially on our side. Now peripherals out into the sides, not as good as some vehicles. They're not quite as wide. I mean, if you take an angle out, a diagonal out, it's not bad. It's probably good enough, but I wish we had some wider lights, or at least some cornering lights or fog lights. Those would be nice to help with those. But once we get over the hill, we'll see if we can turn the high beams back on, see how good a distance we have. All right, automatic high beams back on, and I can see the reflections way down there. Lights are good. Lights up the road, nice and bright, directly in front of us. And overall, what do you guys think of the ambiance in here? Do you like the location of the ambient lightings, the backlit buttons? Would you like a different color? Things like that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I like it. It's comfortable. It's pleasing to drive with. And I love the blue light filter that we get on that screen too. That's actually a really big deal All right, so automatic high beams are on. We're gonna pull out behind some people, so they should stay on low beams, and they are on low beams. So at least we didn't flash anybody. And we kind of got some unexpected chances with the automatic high beams to turn off and on. More than we usually do. Usually there's nobody out here. But anyways, I hope y'all got an idea of what it's like to drive with this. There's no ratings from the IIHS at this time, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get at least the second best acceptable and maybe a good. They don't have adaptive lights, which is a knock, but the automatic high beams work well and the distance is still pretty good. But we're gonna wrap things up. Like I said, if you wanna see more on this Hyundai Tucson, be sure to look in the description below for a full review and subscribe for more night reviews. Signing out, have a good night, we'll see you later.